sound will be a bit better. But it's nice to have an audience as well, because if nobody had turned up and Gary was just talking to the iPad, it's not quite the same. If I just introduce Gary to you. Gary works for Knowsley Council and he manages all of their IT work with schools. I've known him for a very long time. He is very, very knowledgeable, and I know, hopefully, will give you a lot of information this week, today. Obviously, this week's been Safer Internet Day on Tuesday. The children have all been talking about it in class and in assembly. I did an assembly on Monday, and I was quite surprised, positively surprised, about the messages that were very clear in their minds about how they need to keep themselves safe. I asked an assembly how many children had access to an electrical item of some kind, and this was in Key Stage 1 and in Key Stage 2, and that virtually every single hand went up, because whether or not it's your own or it's mum's or it's dad's or whoever it may be, so many children do have access to things. So clearly it is such an important thing to consider, particularly because of the speed at which things change as well. I think that's the main thing, you know. It changes constantly. I hope I'm taking all your speech off you here, Gary. But my son's 14, and when my wife is constantly scrolling through his phone at 14, making sure it's all suitable, he's not up to anything he shouldn't be. But it just changes so often. I think, therefore, to have that real awareness of keeping your child safe, and your child knowing how to keep themselves safe as well, actually, because although, yes, we can act as a gatekeeper, the damage has been done by then. So it's actually about the children understanding how to keep themselves safe too. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Gary.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Here is my contact details and a better looking version of me. We are also on Twitter. For no CLCs, we do tweet a lot around online safety, new resources and new videos. So if any of you are on Twitter and do want to keep up to date with us, you can through there. As Matthew's already alluded to, this changes constantly, and the latest trends and what is being used by children, you almost can't keep up to date with. When I first started doing this job, or doing online safety delivery with kids 10 years ago, the really only threat at that time was Facebook. Even up to probably 5 years ago, the only two platforms that kids were using were Facebook and Twitter. And now that has changed beyond belief. The one thing we've sort of realised when we're talking to kids is that actually it's no longer about teaching them do's and don'ts. It's about teaching them behaviours. Because ultimately, excuse me, I can tell all the kids where the settings are on Facebook, for example. But ultimately, I don't know what they're using because we can't keep a track of what they're using. So we can teach them behaviours, how they behave online, how they protect themselves, then the platform, whatever they're using, then doesn't matter so much. Okay? If any of you got any questions, I've obviously got a presentation I'm going to talk to you about a range of things, but please feel free, if you've got any questions, just shout out, particularly if I mention something that your children are using, or at the end, again, I'm more than happy to help. I will warn, just because there's a couple of children here, the last video, so at the very end, does contain some bad language, so it might be at that point you might just want to step outside with them. Although, sorry, yeah, very young there, maybe. Maybe not. So, this is a video produced last year by the BBC, and they just asked children to explain the best and the worst things that happen to them online.
Sounds clear. That's horrible. Few of them is pretty nasty.
free phone.
No, it's free phone.
Because I'm not on your Wi-Fi, I thought it'd be quicker and 4G is amazing nowadays. The reason I...
You have goals, eyebrows.
We'll try it once more. No, we won't. At least we're not video now anyway. The reason I like that video is that it shows you the best and the worst, and quite often we can get very focused on the negative sides of the internet. The internet is absolutely amazing, and anyone who tells you any different, I would argue all day with. What it can do for our children is truly amazing. It can empower them in a way that we couldn't when we were children. That said, there is obviously the negative side. So I don't want anyone to go away from it and think it'd be better if we just turned it off. It isn't. It is just about teaching and behaviours. It's like everything as a parent. When you're first giving your child, I've got a 3-year-old and a 9-month-old, first time you're giving your first, you haven't got a clue. I remember taking my little one home and literally just thinking, when do I feed her, when do I change her bum, when do I do all that stuff? Well, actually, it's the exact same with the online world. It's just about learning and working things out together. The latest research shows that the fastest growing demographic of people accessing the internet is 3 to 4 year olds. 52% 3 to 4 year olds now spend more than 8 hours a week online. It's an hour a day. So as a parent now, we've almost got to be talking to our children from that age, because that is the age that they're accessing this content. Now, they will do some work in school from reception, and then that carries through if they stay on to A-levels until they're 18. But it is something that is now affecting the very youngest. So it is about sitting down with them from a young age and actually using the technology with them, and knowing that they can talk to you about it as well. One of the things that I hear and see regularly is almost parents dismissing or teachers dismissing Fortnite because they don't understand it, so it must be a load of nonsense. Well, actually, if your child's got a problem with that, is your child going to come and talk to you about it? No, probably not, because their opinion is, well, they've got no interest in that. Everything else you do with your child, again, think back to when they're very young. How many episodes of Thomas the Tank have you watched? Or Postman Pat, or any of that stuff that you've not really got an interest in, but because they're your children, you sit there and watch them with them, or you'll play with them, or you'll do various activities that you don't really have an interest in, but they're your kids. Well, that's the same for their online lives. You should take the same level of interest as you do in their offline lives. The other interesting fact, I know you probably can't read that in full, but this presentation will be shared, is that of 8 to 11 year olds, only 18% now have an online social media presence. That is a massive shift. This is the latest figures from Ofcom. 3 years ago, if we were doing that, I bet you that was 80%. It's now down to 18. Anyone guess why? No one want to speak on I don't blame you. Because of the online gaming. Because they can talk in online games now, so why do they need to go onto Facebook to talk? Or they've got a phone with WhatsApp on, so they can WhatsApp the mates while they're having a chat, playing the game, sorry. But that's a massive difference. We've also become more aware of the risks of social media as society. I don't know whether you saw yesterday, this was, it's been in all the news outlets that Instagram have now commented about how they'll take all self-harm content off the site. Not being funny, it's about 5 years too late. It's took how many children to take their own lives. And while you can't say it directly as a consequence of Instagram, there's an awful lot of self-harm on there. As a society now, we're very much aware of the risks of social media. Do we have the same awareness around online gaming? How many of you have sat there and actually sat down with your kids and spent 30 minutes playing FIFA with them? Or not playing, but sat with them while they're playing it? Or while they're playing Fortnite or any of those games, Minecraft, to see what's going on. There's a lot less media coverage around gaming and what children are doing. The online world has changed massively, as I've already alluded to. And just to give you a couple of examples, so again, technology's changed beyond belief. Up until 3-4 years ago, the devices people were accessing was limited. It's now vast. You've got various devices, the children, you've even got now your watches. So you used to be able to say, well, leave your phones downstairs. So they've got it on a watch. You used to know that if the kids were outside the home, well, they couldn't get on Wi-Fi. But now everyone's got 4G and it's quicker than your home Wi-Fi. So you can't limit their access through that way. You also knew where it was. You couldn't put, our advice used to be put your PC in your house, in your living room, or a shared area. Well, now every device they've got has got a connection to the internet, so it's so vast. You also have this issue that the technology companies are designing their tech to keep them engaged on it. Every game, every social media app, everything that's on our devices wants to keep us there. And yet we tell kids you can only go on it for 30 minutes a day. I mean, that's sort of a summary of things that will come in it. The infinite content. Anyone remember accessing the internet up to 10 years ago? You'd read a page and you'd be an next button. It doesn't happen now, does it? Why? Because that way it was proven that we wouldn't press next. We press back and go look at something else. So now what does it do? It doesn't end. So instead of 5 pages, you've got 1 page with all the content, because you will just keep scrolling through. There was a change in the colours that are used. I know this sounds really basic. Instagram, don't know if any of you remember the old Instagram logo. It was just a brown camera. And they spent an awful lot of money on this new design because their logo on your phone now jumps out of the screen. It's the one that catches your eye. And that's really basic, but an awful lot of investment went into that to keep kids using Instagram. The little messaging thing, you've ever done this yourselves? You send somebody a text that you don't necessarily need a response to straight away, but you see them 3 little buttons, dots, and you think, oh, she's replying to me, I'll wait. And you stay on it. And that's not by chance, that's by design. Technology companies want to keep you on there. So these are the fights we're sort of having with children. It's also amazing to look what companies want off us in terms of data. This is again something we've become very much more aware of with the data analytical scandal from last year. 75% of all apps on the App Store want access to your data in some form. There's a little breakdown of what they want. Location. Do you know if I walked into year 6 now and said, Mr. Copland's going to tag you all? Electronic tag is scared for your safety, so he just wants to know where you are every time of the day. How many do you think he'd let you? How many parents do you think could let you?
I think that might be more of an issue.
Yeah, we let Instagram. Because Instagram are lovely, aren't they? They're not there for profit. Sorry, don't know anyone from Instagram personally. But we let all these apps and sites and everything access our data. And okay, you could argue there's no harm to some of that. Do we actually know that? 93% of our buying choices now are influenced by our online behaviour. And again, it's at a basic level. If I go on my wife's phone, I get the adverts that I see, and then for the likes of Boots. When I go on, I get B&Q. And I know that's at a very basic level, but how much does it know about us? I'm old and miserable, she's young and land. But it's the same thing, children and behaviours. As a consequence of this change in environment, and again, there's no evidence to suggest this is true, but we have seen a significant increase in the number of girls who are self-harming. Boys, it stayed the same. What does that say about our habits when we're online? There's an awful lot of pressure on girls and their appearance and their image, whereas, and this is a stereotype, boys tend to go online to play online games, whereas girls will look at other things to do with maybe makeup and appearance. Well, actually, we're seeing an awful lot of girls now self-harming. Again, with your conversations with your own children, is it something you talk to them about? Self-harming? Is anybody ever spoke to children about self-harming? It's not something, it's also not something generally when teachers speak to children, and I don't know what they're doing here, but we tend to focus on the harm or the abuse. Well, actually, this is a significant threat as well to children. In terms of what children are accessing, they tend to fall into 4 categories. Online games, that is now, when you talk to children, that is the number one thing. So if you look at what they're doing, they tend to be playing online games. The next one, obviously, is your social media. That does include the likes of WhatsApp, Snapchat, Instagram. They probably are the most popular amongst children at the minute. Although, interestingly, Facebook still has the most users. The other interesting thing with those 3 is Instagram and WhatsApp. When you talk to children about why they don't use Facebook anymore, they tell you it's because it's less secure. Who owns Instagram and WhatsApp? Facebook. There's none of them that are any more secure or less secure than the other. They all have the same things. They all have the same sort of protection in there in terms of privacy settings, etc. One thing that we have seen constantly is children have the knowledge but don't know the behaviours. I can walk into any year 5 class, probably in the country, and ask children, how do you protect yourself from Instagram? And they'll all tell me they go to settings and put their account on private. They don't talk to strangers. How many of them do it? How many of them do it, but then accept lots and lots of people because they want to be the cool kids in school? And you can think back to your own childhoods. Unsurprisingly, I wasn't particularly popular. I was quite happy in that environment. But I know other kids in our school who would have had loads of friends because they were the cool kids and everyone. So they'd want to have that many followers. It's almost the nature of children. But actually then as a parent, it's sort of our job to sit down with them, show an interest in Instagram, and if you see that they've got 347 followers, alarm bells go off because you think, unless you've got a very big family, you're not going to know that many people. And then start to challenge them again with online gaming. If you see the kids are playing people and you don't recognise the name, just say, who's that? And then talk to them. I had a child once who told me about this online gamer who he was playing against, who was called Luke. He would not have that he didn't know Luke. Never met him in his life. And I was saying to him, well, if you met him, so you can't know him, but I do know him, I've been playing him for years. I know, but you only know something if you meet them in real life, you know them, then you can trust them. That to a child couldn't understand why I didn't think he knew him, because he did. He's been playing for online games for 3 years. Why wouldn't he know? He does know we can trust him. He's got the same interests as him. What do you think somebody who's looking to harm or abuse a child is going to do? Share interests with them. In that scenario, teacher spoke to the parent, and the parent then actually arranged a meeting. And there was no risk in that. great, but it's being checked out. The other two, obviously streaming music and film, and then for doing schoolwork or research. The top two, I think, are sort of the highest risk for children. The first one in particular, think about it. When your kids are playing online games, where's their attention? On the game. So if you've got somebody who's looking to harm or abuse your child, they're clever in the way they do it. They will play the game regularly before they start to engage in those conversations. They're not just going to start playing FIFA and say, hi, what's your name? Where do you live? Do you want to meet me in the park? They're clever in the way they do it. They will establish relationships. They will play them again and again and again. They'll play them at FIFA, for example, and they will make sure that the games are always close. Because you know, if your child beats them 10-0, they won't play them again. There is something that's very clever in the way that they will groom your children. And that's where your children have got to be aware. And again, as parents, it is about sitting down and saying, well, who are they? Who are they that you're playing? About encouraging your children not to play the same random strangers all the time. I'd love it if your kids only went on and played their mates. But that is not completely unrealistic, but that's difficult. Children go on an online environment. Fortnite at the minute is currently the biggest, most popular game. In one version of that, you get put into an island with 100 other players. And it's last man standing, essentially. Well, actually, if you're just saying to kids you can only play with yourself, what's the chances they will do that? And it is about making sure that actually if they're doing it, a good way to do it is make sure they're not communicating. Take headsets away, turn off the chat facility. If you're playing a game, why do you need to have a chat with anyone? If you're friends with them, the chances are you've got a mobile phone with their contacts, so you probably have a chat to them that way. Okay, anyone know the average age of a gamer in the UK? Anyone like to guess? 10 higher. 28 higher. Oh, lower. It's like a game show, isn't it? 31. Average age of people playing online games in this country is 31. Where did you get the time? Frightening, isn't it? But when you think about that, when you say that, because when you talk to children about who they're playing online, and you ask them, who's that, Luke, whatever it is, and then you ask them to describe them, do you know what they tell you? Basically another version of them in a bedroom that's very similar to theirs. But the chances are they're playing against a 31-year-old. Knowing that fact does not mean that every 31-year-old who's playing online games looking to harm or abuse children. They're not. But it does change it. Why is your child having a conversation with a 31-year-old? If they got stopped in a street by a random 31-year-old, they wouldn't stop and have a chat. Well, why is it different in an online environment? It shouldn't be. And again, this goes back to the behaviour side of it. If we can teach children from a young age around the behaviours about what they're doing. So, okay, you're going to go online, you're going to play online games with people, you're not talking to them. Why do you need to have those conversations with them? If you're in a closed environment with your friends, okay, maybe then as they get older you say, all right, yeah, you can chat to your friends only. But again, it's monitored and it's agreed. Set the parameters as a parent, and this will depend on the age of your kids and the access. Set the parameters early. It's very hard to give children Fortnite and then you find out, oh, they're playing with 100 strangers, right, we're going to tell them they can't do that. Because you've given them something, then you're taking away, you're going to have a battle. So when they ask you for access to stuff, find out what it is, sit down and play it with them, find out and say, right, you can do this, this and this. And set some parameters, because it's a lot harder to get it back, so set them from the start. Sit down with the kids, talk to it. The other one, for children who do have devices in bedrooms, sit at the top of the stairs, just listen. particularly obviously if they have headsets. If they're having a chat and you suddenly start hearing them talking about themselves, why are they having a conversation about themselves? If it's somebody they know, they don't need to tell them about themselves. So it can only be straight. Why does a stranger need to know anything about them? If they're playing online games, they're there to play the online game. All of the sets, all the Xbox Live, Nintendo Switch, whatever it is they're playing, they've all got parental controls. If you're not sure, just Google it. Whatever device with parental controls, there'll be a video on there of what you do. You do not have to be the most tech-savvy person in the world to work any of these things out. They're all really simple. And if not, there's a YouTube video for everything. Just go in there and use the technology. The other issue we see regularly, and again I don't know about this school, is children accessing games that they shouldn't, and by that I mean 18. So Call of Duty, GTA tend to be the two most popular. I would encourage any of you to just sit down and play these games with your children. For anyone, I've had parents argue with me over, no, it is okay for them to be on, because there's no real harm. I personally disagree with that view, but for anyone, just sit down for 10 minutes with them and let them play it and see what happens. I'll give you an example. In one of the, it's not the current version of one of these games, if you bought a prostitute in it, and the only way you could get your money back was using a sex instrument to beat them to death. Now anybody who's going to tell me that that is appropriate for, well, any children or adults, you could argue, to be playing, I will disagree, but we just have to disagree on that because we're polar opposites. You've got to just sit down and play some of these games with them and also listen to them. So yeah, it's one of those things I'd encourage you. They do have PEGI ratings that are the exact same as the films. A lot of times parents who will let them play GTA, Call of Duty, they will do so, but they will not let them watch an 18 film. What's no different? The law in this is actually the same as alcohol. There's nothing stopping me buying a crate of Stella and saying to my little boy, go on, knock yourself out. Social services might have something to say about that, but there's nothing legally stopping me doing that. Same with Call of Duty. I could give my little boy access to Call of Duty. Legally, it's not an epic. I've not broken the law. But morally, I would argue you have. The other one, before we move on to this, the other one that's a big, really popular and baffles me is watching other people play. So there is, there's this website called Twitch, and there's also loads of these on YouTube, where children watch other people playing the games. The risk with this is obviously the type of games they're watching, and also the language being used. Obviously, if you go onto Twitch, you could then easily watch somebody else playing Call of Duty or GTA or other games. There is obviously then also a risk of being groomed if there are people looking to abuse children playing games. They could essentially establish relationships that way. There's also an element of the language used is appalling in some instances, and there is also online bullying within these sites. That said, it's not all bad. Those sites, Twitch and YouTube for kids watching it. Some children do like to watch in order to get better, but again, it's about sitting down with them, listening and watching and seeing. Well, actually, Dan TDM, for example, is a YouTuber who's very good at Fortnite and Minecraft. Well, actually, he doesn't use bad language. So is that one of the more safe ones, whereas you can go on and find other ones that the language, every other word is an expletive. So it is about, like, saying, again, get the parameters right. You can watch this particular YouTuber in that example. Okay. This is interesting, going off stat. So proportion of parents who of 5 to 15-year-olds who agree that the benefits for your children outweigh the risks. It's down to 54%. That's essentially 1 in 2. I think that the benefits outweigh the negatives. I think that's really, really sad. The 46% of parents think the negatives of the internet, we've only had it 25 years. A little bit longer, sorry. It's not been around for that long. The abuse that goes on there now, some parents think, outweigh the positives. Emphasise the positives to your children. It is amazing what you can do online. And really, we shouldn't forget that. Because the other benefit of doing that is your kids think they can talk to you about it. Because you're not the one who's always negative about it. You'll know yourself with your own children. Your children will go to the parents who they think they'll get what they want out of. My little boy will try and play football with me and won't my wife. He'll try and do other things with my wife than me because of their perception. It's the same with this. If all you are ever doing is being negative around the internet or asking them questions you don't want to answer, they're not going to talk to you about it. And that's where we've almost got to do that fake interest part. Let's sit down and watch Minecraft. Wow, did you make that? And really, if anyone's ever seen Minecraft, there's very little impressive about it. It's like sort of we played when we were kids. The graphics are awful, but it's their world. There was some research in recently that talked about children's freedom, and basically saying parents have taken freedom away from children. So for example, when I was a kid, my mum and dad after tea would let me go and play outside for an hour. It was in the street and no doubt they were checking, looking through the blinds every couple of minutes. But I felt like I had freedom. We don't give that to our kids anymore. The only place they get it is through online games because they feel like it's their environment. And we do need to give them some freedom. But with everything, we've just got to take an interest and see what it is. Almost like checking the blinds every 2 minutes. Just go and sit down with them and play the games with them. The other interesting one is this about parents, what the concerns were. And when you look about it, number 5 on the list was cyberbullying. Higher than that was given out the data that's being collected. And while I share concerns about the data that's being collected about children, online bullying is a massive threat to children. There was a report out by the NSPCC the year before last that said that the 12-year-old at transition, it's the biggest threat to a child's transition from primary to secondary school. Because they face a significant change. Children who aren't particularly interested in social media or the online world, the minute they go to secondary school, there's a peer pressure to be. And it changes significantly at that point. And online bullying is more prevalent at secondary school level than primary school level. Possibly because you end up with a bigger audience. Primary school, you tend to play with your classmates and in that environment. Go to secondary, you become part of a wider pool. And we change at that age. And we push boundaries and we see what we can get away with at that age. Again, talk to children. Online bullying is purely a behaviour thing. We all sit down and talk to our children about bullying in real life. Well, actually, it's the same on here. Look at the chats they're having. Again, get your parameters set. Tell them you want access to the phone. You want to be able to see the conversations they're having. And you know, if anyone ever says to you, they've done this, don't instantly get on the defensive. Quite often, we see examples, and we've been asked to support schools in this, where you just have parents who absolutely will not see that their child is doing anything wrong. Our kids will do things wrong. As a parent, I almost want my little boy to do something wrong. Because at least then if I know about them, I can deal with them and I can talk to them about it. So if you do get another parent saying, such as your little boy or little girl has done this, listen to them, have a look at it, and be open-minded about it, and then have the conversation with your child. I think it's almost better if my kid's friend's mum or dad rang me and said this has happened, I'd almost think, great, I can have that conversation about them, why they've done it, because I know about it, rather than them doing it and me never finding out. As parents, talk to each other. The other thing you get regularly is sort of pressure to allow them. All the classmates are using Fortnite. Talk to the other parents. Because I bet you half of them aren't. So if you're able to talk to as a group, and maybe depending on how close you are to other parents, agree things. We had one of our schools invited their year 6 because they were having a horrendous time on social media, and they basically got the parents to agree to just use one social media site for all the children. So that actually then it could be monitored, and it could be the parents could monitor the behaviour. So then all the parents allowed the children to use that rather than they were all using various different ones. This is a report that was out by the London Grid for Learning. It was 40,000 pupils were interviewed about their online experiences. Quite often as adults, we have a perception of the risks of our kids' online life. Harm and abuse is obviously the one that's sort of at the top of the list. Online bullying and so forth. It's fascinating to find out what's happening from kids. One of the things I've never spoke to children about, certainly primary school, is nudes. There is now a growing trend of getting pictures of nudes of under 10-year-olds. That sort of came out from this. Again, I've done this for the best part of 13 years, talked to children about online safety. It's not something that's ever come across my radar. Because I don't live in the same world that they do, and I'm not somebody who's trying to get new pictures of under 10-year-olds. Talk to your kids about what's happening. But that is one that is particularly concerning, and that is something you probably have to have a conversation with your children about. Have you ever been asked? The other one is self-harm, which we've all already mentioned. I've never spoken to kids on self-harm. But there is, and it's been highlighted in the news recently with Instagram, there is an awful lot of content online that promotes self-harm. Baffling as an adult, but it's there. So we need to be having those conversations with children. Statistically, 1 in 4 children have been bullied online. 1 in 6, I've seen something that encourages self-harm. 1 in 10 have video chat with people they don't know. Take year 6, there's 3 kids in there who've had a chat with people they don't know through video. It's that the 80% of all internet activity is now video content in some form. Again, it's talking to the children about what they're doing and who they're talking to online and what they're being asked to do online. A nice little way of, because it's difficult to have these conversations with your kids, they almost don't want to do it with you. One way of doing it is by showing an interest and sitting down with them. What's Minecraft all about? What's Fortnite? I've heard all about it. What is it? And getting them to show you. The one thing you do find with children, they love telling you about it. I'll go in and they're almost made up if they can name something I've not heard of, because they know more than you about it. It doesn't matter, I'm not into that world. But being able to talk to them and show an interest and not starting off negatively. When you talk to your kids, you've probably all done something around body language in your lives. If I go into a class, you'll get 10 kids who start off like that. Don't want to talk to you. Look at your own body language with your kids when you talk to them about their online lives. Because until you get them comfortable and able to talk, it's always pointless trying to get any messages across to them. And that's where you've got to break down some of those barriers. You've got to show the interest. A nice way to start off conversations, there's loads and loads of books now around this. There's a couple on there. But if you just sort of Google your age of your child and online safety books or e-safety books, Mark Zuckerberg's sisters actually got a couple of these out, and I can't think of a name. But there's a really nice one called Dot. Sit down, read them with your kids, and then that's a way to get the conversation started with them. Or it's another way to So, total interest, use technology with them. The fourth one, do not become a sharer. Has anyone heard of that expression? Parents oversharing. How many of you are guilty of it? Take a picture, put it on social media. Anyone takes a picture of you and say, can I put, and they put on social media and you don't like it, you have a go at them. Take that down. But we just do it with parents. There's a video BBC owner have just produced of two kids, in fact the famous YouTubers, but I don't know them, giving messages to parents. All those embarrassing pictures that you've posted during the 16 are likely to get a bit of grief for. And it's just friendly stick, no harm in that. But it could actually lead to bullying. Kids being picked on. Don't overuse technology yourself. You've got to lead by example. All the things you're telling your children to, you've got to display those behaviours. Think about the messages you post as well. We've had instances of parents calling each other for everything. Social media. Chance for the kids. Seeing the mum or dad behaving that way, they're going to behave in that way. A couple of tools you can use. Google Family Link. This allows you to control the devices that are accessing Google services, so Android devices. You can set, so for example, screen time. So there, between 9 PM and 7 AM, they can't go on the internet. Sorry, they can go on the internet, and after 7 PM, they can't. It's a restriction in the device. You can then also, you can see the example on the slide, Samantha, she's been on Google Duo for 41 minutes. It gives you a breakdown of what they've been using. If you're not sure, it takes about 15 minutes. If you're not sure how to do it, just Google Family Link and some video tutorial on how to do it. iOS has the same. This is in iOS 12, so it's in the latest iOS. Any of your kids' devices should be able to upload to there. I think the last device that won't go up to iOS 12 is the iPad 2. But most the iPad 3 ones as well. Most of you will have newer devices than that. And again, you can just restrict what they can access. You can do so. You can have an hour a day on Safari, or you can have, there's no internet between these times. Again, if you're not sure how to do it, just Google it. Okay. This is a really nice book. This has been released for Safer Internet Day, #Goldilocks. It's a digital book, completely free to download. It's been produced by Vodafone. They've actually released 2 yesterday, 2 additional ones for this that you'll access through the same link. And, right, this one's got some bad language in it. I don't know if you want to take any of your children out.
You've got no friends. Everybody hates you. You must get your clothes from a charity shop. Scamp. Your hair always looks greasy. Lol. And those teeth look so gross. Like, seriously? You're fat, disgusting, and ugly. I hope you die. 3 times. Bitch.
I think it's very powerful, that video, and I don't know how many of you allow your children to take devices to bed. It has been scientifically proven that you shouldn't use your phone an hour before bedtime because it stops the hormone that helps you to sleep. But it's also then the other side of it. What are your children accessing before they go to bed? A lot of children, when you ask them who takes their phone to bed, tell them they've got to because it's an alarm clock. It's the most expensive alarm clock I've ever ever imagined. If I sold one for £400, I'm not sure many people would buy it. Do think about what your children have access to. It is something that impacts significantly lack of sleep on certainly the school life, but also their happiness, which is ultimately what we want them to be. In terms of who can help, see the online police, so if you've ever got any concerns, you can report it through to them. The NSPCC do an awful lot, as do Childline, around this issue. I'd also encourage you, as I say, to talk to other parents who are all going through very similar things. So talk to other parents about it, and obviously you do have school as well. The safeguard officer in particular would be willing to help, I'm sure. That is the end of the presentation. Sorry, I've gone over by 5 minutes. If anyone's got any questions, more than happy to take them. I'm also happy to stay around if anyone wants to talk about anything in particular. If not, thank you very much for coming along and giving me your time. And thank you, Matthew, for inviting me.
Thank you, Gary. As always, hopefully, I think more than anything, it's food for thought, isn't it? I think it just makes you think, and I think because it's so much part of our lives, we don't always spend that time thinking about it because it's just so part of what we do on a daily basis. And I think certainly, as I sat there with my 14-year-old, it was making me think about a few things again as well. So a massive thank you, Gary. As I say, if you've got any questions, do feel free to stay around and ask. And as Gary said, if you do have any concerns, obviously in school we don't allow the children to have phones. If they bring them in year 6, they sign a contract, as the parents do, to say that they will switch them off the minute they come through the gates and hand them to their teacher, and then they get them back at the end of the day. If they're not walking home on their own, we actually say you don't need a phone. That's the only reason really they should have one. Having said that they don't use them, we're very strict on that. We don't have phones around at all in school. Having said that, we still do find ourselves sometimes getting embroiled in issues that happened online in the evenings, etc. And certainly those year 6s, I think you do find examples, particularly around WhatsApp and that kind of thing. You know, I know from talking to parents that some of the parent WhatsApp groups managed to get through 150 messages in 30 minutes. But if you imagine a child trying to comprehend that volume of messages as well, that's absolutely quite terrifying for them, isn't it? And what's been going backwards and forwards, and that peer pressure as well to feel like, well, actually, everybody else is on here and I want to be on it too. And I think the other thing that Gary said, certainly from having an older child, I'm sure some of you have got older children as well, I think it's setting those boundaries up at that very early age as well, because I think if you let them have that free rein, as Gary said, and then try and pull it back, that's very, very difficult. But I think if those systems are there to begin with, and the children know that you will be looking at what they're doing, you will have those conversations, and actually there are limits to when they can and can't do it. I think as they get older and more difficult to manage when they're as tall as you, it does make it slightly easier. But a big thank you, Gary. Can I just ask before you go, do feel free to hang around for any questions. If you wouldn't mind just filling in a quick evaluation sheet. I've not got loads of pens, about 10 or 15, so do feel free to fill one in. I'd really appreciate it. Have a great half term as well. Thanks everyone. Thank you.